The wind howled like a living thing that night, shaking the old wooden cabin as if it wanted to tear it from its foundations. Snow fell in sheets so thick you couldn't see 3 feet ahead, the kind of night where even wolves stayed in their dens. I was alone in my cabin, as I'd been for the past 30 years, deep in the Siberian wilderness, miles from the nearest village, surrounded by nothing but forest, mountains, and the endless white of winter. The thermometer outside my window read -71 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes, cold enough to kill. I'd lived through hundreds of nights like this. I knew how to survive. Keep the fire burning, keep the cabin sealed, stay inside, wait for morning. But that night was different. That night, I heard something that made my blood run colder than the wind outside. A sound I'd never heard before in all my years in these mountains. A deep, desperate roar, not of anger, but of fear, of pleading. I moved to the window and wiped away the frost. Through the swirling snow, I saw something that stopped my heart. A bear. A massive Siberian brown bear standing upright in the clearing in front of my cabin. Her fur was thick with ice and snow. Her breath came in great clouds of steam. And in her mouth, carried as gently as a mother carries a newborn, was something small and still. A cub. The mother bear moved closer to my door, and I saw the cub more clearly. It wasn't moving. Its tiny body hung limp. Its eyes were closed. The small chest wasn't rising or falling. The mother bear looked directly at my window. Our eyes met through the frozen glass, and in that moment, I understood. She was asking for help.
I'd heard stories, of course. Old tales told by hunters and trappers around fires. Stories of animals seeking help from humans in moments of desperate need. I'd always dismissed them as folklore, exaggerations. But here she was, a wild bear, one of the most dangerous predators in these mountains, standing at my door with her dying cub. Not attacking, not threatening, asking. My mind raced. This was insane. Bears don't trust humans. Humans don't trust bears. That's how survival works. That's how you stay alive in the wilderness. But that cub... I made a decision that went against every survival instinct I had. I opened the door. The cold hit me like a physical blow. The wind tore at my clothes. Snow stung my face. But I stepped outside anyway, moving slowly, keeping my hands visible. The mother bear stood perfectly still, watching me, waiting. I approached carefully, my heart hammering. One wrong move and those massive paws could end me in seconds. But she didn't move, didn't growl, just watched with those dark, intelligent eyes. When I reached her, she lowered her head, slowly, deliberately, and placed the cub on the snow at my feet. The tiny thing was barely breathing. Its fur was frozen, its little paws were blue. Hypothermia, severe, maybe minutes from death. I knelt in the snow and scooped up the cub, cradling it against my chest. It was so cold it felt like ice, so still I could barely feel it breathing. The mother bear made a sound, low, soft, almost like a whimper. I looked up at her and nodded. I don't know if she understood, but I hoped she did. "I'll help," I said. My voice was lost in the wind, but I said it anyway. "I promise." The mother bear turned and walked toward my barn, the old structure I used for storing wood and supplies. She pushed the door open with her massive head and disappeared inside, taking shelter, staying close, waiting. I carried the cub inside and shut the cabin door against the storm.
The little thing barely weighed anything. A male cub, maybe 4 months old. Too young to survive on his own. Too young to survive this cold. I moved fast. I stoked the fire in the hearth until it roared with heat. I grabbed every blanket I owned and made a nest near the flames. I wrapped the cub carefully, rubbing his tiny paws and body, trying to warm him gently.
too fast and the shock could kill him. For 20 minutes, he didn't move, didn't open his eyes. I kept working, kept warming him, kept hoping. And then a twitch. One small paw moved, then another. His little chest began to rise and fall more steadily. His eyes opened, dark and confused and very, very young. He looked up at me and made a tiny sound, a small, questioning chirp. I couldn't help it. I smiled. "You're okay," I whispered. "You're going to be okay." I spent the next hour nursing him. I heated some broth and fed it to him drop by drop. He drank eagerly, getting stronger with each swallow. His fur began to dry, his color improved. He started to move around, exploring his blanket nest, stumbling on unsteady legs. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, a wild creature that should have feared me curled up against my leg and fell asleep. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The cub slept peacefully by the fire. I sat watching him, still not quite believing what had happened. And then I heard it, a sound that sent ice through my veins. Wolves. The howling came from the direction of my small sheep pen behind the cabin. I kept 4 sheep for wool and milk, hardy animals that could survive the Siberian winter, but not against a wolf pack. I grabbed my rifle from above the door and rushed outside into the storm.
The scene that greeted me was chaos. 6 wolves circled the pen, their eyes gleaming in the darkness. They'd broken through the wooden fence. My sheep were panicked, pressed together in terror. One wolf had already grabbed a lamb. I raised my rifle, but before I could fire, something massive exploded from the barn. The mother bear. She hit the ground running, a wall of fur and fury. Her roar shook the night, not fear this time, but rage, pure protective fury. The wolves scattered instantly. The one holding the lamb dropped it and fled. The mother bear chased them, her massive form moving with terrifying speed. She pursued them to the tree line and beyond, making sure they understood, stay away. I stood frozen, my rifle forgotten in my hands. The mother bear returned slowly, her breath steaming in the freezing air. She looked at the sheep, then at me. Then she turned and walked back to the barn. She defended my farm, saved my sheep, repaid the kindness I'd shown her cub. I lowered my rifle and went back inside. The cub was awake, looking for his mother. I carried him to the barn, wrapped in blankets. The mother bear stood as I entered. I placed the cub gently on the hay, and he stumbled toward her on unsteady legs. The reunion was gentle. She nuzzled him carefully, checking him over, making soft sounds. The cub chirped and pressed against her warmth. Safe. Alive. She looked at me, and for the second time that night, our eyes met. Understanding passed between us. Recognition. Gratitude. Trust. I nodded and left them alone. By morning, the storm had passed. The world was silent and white and beautiful. I checked the barn at first light. They were gone. Fresh tracks led north into the deep forest. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. 3 hours later, I heard movement outside. I opened the door and stopped. The mother bear stood in the clearing. The cub played nearby in the snow, healthy, strong, full of life. And at her feet lay 3 massive salmon, fresh from the river, still silvery and perfect. She'd gone fishing. She'd brought food, a thank you, a gift. I laughed, actually laughed out loud, something I hadn't done in years. "Thank you," I called to her, "for the fish and for last night." She looked at me one final time, then turned, grunted softly to her cub. The little one bounded after her, alive and strong. They disappeared into the forest together.
That night, I sat by the fire with a full belly and a full heart. For one night, the walls between human and wild had fallen. Some bonds run deeper than fear, deeper than instinct, even here, even in the frozen heart of Siberia.